Hi everyone, I'm super excited to bring to you today an enlightening and empowering conversation with nutritionist and naturopath Renee Grandi on a topic that tends to fly under the radar, menopause. Renee has a Bachelor of Health Science in Naturopathy, an Advanced Diploma in Nutritional Medicine, and an Advanced Diploma in Naturopathy. Renee is a dedicated health professional who understands that imbalances are multifactorial and require thorough investigation. She has experience in working in Australian clinics and a world-renowned health resort based in Thailand. Here in Australia, she has consulted with high-end clients from around the globe and completed regular in-person and online health lectures. She'll be commencing her master's in neuroscience to help bridge the link between mental health and women's health. Putting together the pieces of the biochemical puzzle is Renee's forte. She'll dive deeply into your health to determine underlying imbalances, nutrient deficiencies, and the root cause for your signs and symptoms. Renee will build you up with positivity, encouragement, and holistic health education so you can feel inspired to understand your body and move forward in your healing journey without judgment. She's also struggled with her own health issues, including PCOS, PMDD, infertility, and acne, and has dedicated her life to understanding and treating hormonal conditions. Renee works by individualizing supplements, herbals, nutritional, and lifestyle interventions to accelerate your healing journey. Today, Renee helps us unravel the mystery of menopause. We discuss why menopause has been historically such a taboo subject. We look at what a woman's body goes through as she moves into perimenopause and menopause. Renee explains the hormonal and physical changes from drops in estrogen to night sweats to dry vagina. We also discuss how to ease the transition by preparing your body with the best herbs, supplements, and nutritional support, and what you can do mentally to cope with the changes in your body. This really is an important conversation, and I'd love for you to share it with your friends and family so that we can all keep the conversation going and help each other experience what can be a truly liberating transition to one where we get to be kinder to ourselves with positive, helpful, and supportive conversations and self-care. If you like this podcast, don't forget to give us a like and follow, which helps us to get the word out to more people. Now let's dive in. Hi, Renee. Welcome to the Biohacker podcast. Excited to have you on today. How are you doing?
Fabulous. Thank you, Azra. Lovely to be here. I love talking all about menopause. So yeah, this is going to be great.
Exciting. So to kickstart off, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to nutrition and women's health.
Yeah. So I'm a nutritionist and naturopath, definitely women's health specialist. I have my own history in women's health issues. So diagnosed with PCOS, PMDD, miscarriages, infertility. I've had slow functioning thyroid, acne, just so anxiety, insomnia. Like there's so many things that I feel like I've gone through, and even from a young age. So it took a long time for me to understand what was actually happening with my body. And the only way I started to get answers was to deep dive into researching it myself.
It's funny how many people have to do that, right? I've been in a similar situation, and it's quite unfortunate that we have to do that to be able to get the answers that we're seeking, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But once you know it, you can't unknow it. And then it's about sharing it with everyone else.
Exactly. So tell us a little bit more about some of those health issues that you had. Can you do a little bit of a deeper dive into those for us?
Yeah, I mean, my health issues started off pretty young. So when I was 11, I had anorexia and bulimia. Then it kind of hit off into depression and anxiety in my teens. I was diagnosed with PCOS at 19. Then there was the infertility side of things, trying to conceive and having issues with that. And it's just been with PCOS in itself, it's so multifaceted. So it can be the facial hair, the acne, the hair loss, the weight gain, the mood dysregulation.
Sorry, for those that don't know what PCOS is, can you?
Yeah. So that's polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it's where you generally will have either cysts on your ovaries, higher androgen, so higher testosterone and DHEAs, and irregular period cycles. So generally you're looking at either a loss of period, amenorrhea, or delayed cycle length. So over that 35-day period. So some women can go, like 50, 60, 70 days. And that's part of that PCOS picture.
Great. Thank you. So we're here to have a chat about menopause, and I feel like it's long been a taboo subject for many years, but it's so important to discuss, right? And I think that the reason why it's so important to discuss is because it's important for women to understand what their bodies are going through and will go through if they're not in menopause yet.
Definitely.
And prepare for that in any way that they can. So why do you think that is the case, that it's been such a taboo subject for so many years? It's really only just, I think, lately that we're starting to talk about it more.
Oh, definitely. Okay. I mean, I feel like just from a blunt perspective, I feel like for a long time we've been in a quite misogynistic world and that women haven't really been able to openly discuss their signs and symptoms. That there was a lot of misconceptions about menopause, that it's really that psychological construct, that it's this disease that needs to be treated with hormones. But I really think it's just that we've been taken away from the very essence that it's a natural phenomenon that happens to women, that it's a new era and stage of life, just like going into menarche is the same, getting your period, changing from that adolescent period. It's this new era. And now women are transitioning into another very natural process. And I mean, it should be looked at more as you're going into a stage of the matriarch, the life lessons that you've been learning, the era of wisdom, not having kids anymore, not being looked at as this fertile piece or object, because we have been objectified for most of your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing, is that society as a whole, it's always so focused on looking young women, staying young, not being allowed to age. Once you're aging, you've lost that sex appeal, which it's so not true. And I think it's like time for women to really feel super empowered to take on this new transitional time. It's a completely different level of awesomeness that you can reach. You're not running around looking after kids. It's the time that you can really dive into the things that you're interested in, time for introspection, time for really looking at what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy, what you're willing to put up with, setting boundaries, finding your creative outlets, and not having to be the sole carer of everyone.
Oh, that resonates so much with me. As a 53-year-old mum of 3, I can absolutely resonate with what you've just said and relate to it. There's something about just having that freedom of coming into that matriarchal time in your life where you don't have to worry about anyone else so much anymore. So now you can start to turn and look at yourself and think, okay, well, how about let's care for me for a little while now, and let's put me first for a little while. And, what do I want to do now? And how do I care for myself better? Because I think women in particular give so much of themselves to their families in such a selfless way, which is a beautiful gift, to their children and to their families. But we often forget to look after ourselves during that time.
Absolutely. And if you really are coming into this time, this is that time. This is the time of self-care and nurturing and exploring your body. It's not the case that menopause needs to be scary. I think it's super scary because we just don't have enough information out there on also how to nourish and support the transition. We've really been taken away from that support, So
Definitely.
yeah, this is a whole new era for women, and I think it's power to the women.
For sure. And that's an important point to make, in terms of taking your power back. Because, what we often see, as we said before, that, in terms of so much giving before and also not speaking about menopause and not being open and having those red tent conversations, that it's, so critical for us to be sharing information and taking our power back and owning what our bodies are going through and embracing that and being okay with it and being transparent about it so that we can all learn from each other.
Yes, the transparency I think is super key, and having these super open, honest, raw conversations, like, let's talk about the vaginal dryness. Let's talk about the hot flushes and the irritability, and let's dive into what's actually causing them and ways that you can really nourish and support all of the aspects of it. Yeah, I think it's so important.
Absolutely. And we're going to do a deep dive into all of that shortly. But let's start at the beginning. So if I'm a woman that's all of a sudden skipping a period or two and starting to experience other symptoms, what should I do? And who do I go see?
Yeah, so I would say if you're starting to notice a change in your cycles and you're really starting to notice that the insomnia is starting to come in, the hot flushes, first and foremost, I would say go see your GP for a comprehensive blood test. Like, it's time to get a women's comprehensive blood evaluation. So that would be things like your thyroid panel. A lot of the time they'll only do something like a TSH, but if you're dealing with, chronic fatigue, I would really try pushing for the thyroid stimulating hormone, the T4, the T3, and if you have any kind of autoimmunity, your thyroid antibodies. Vitamin D, definitely. Your vitamin D should be sitting above 75, ideally for women. And vitamin D is super crucial for women going through menopause. So if you're low in vitamin D, you can't make your serotonin, you can't make your melatonin, so your sleep support, and you're not going to be able to make your hormones properly. And your immune system, and like, it all has such a huge relevance there. I'd say, look at your cholesterol. If you have, elevated liver enzymes or a higher cholesterol, so anything generally above 4 or 4.5 as you're kind of older, then you are going to be a lot more predisposed to the hot flushes and that general heat in your body. So the liver you can always associate with heat. And when you have higher cholesterol, when you have those visceral changes, when you are having hot flushes and the vasodilation, that will be influenced by the arterial cholesterol. So you want to make sure that your cholesterol and your lipids and your blood sugars are all under control, and have a look at the blood test yourself. So it's super important to check not only like your glucose, but there's something called the HbA1c, which is how your red blood cells store your glucose over a 3-month period. So we're looking at the percentages there. And often you can have normal glucose and HbA1c and still have elevated insulin and that insulin resistance. So I would also be pushing with your doctor to check all three. So HbA1c, glucose, and insulin. Vitamin B12 is another really important one because that has a lot to do with the nervous system. So any kind of tingling in the hands and feet, any numbness of the toes, if you're really predisposed to headaches and migraines, definitely be checking B12 as well. And the ranges are so broad with your B12. So it can be anywhere in a range conventionally between 150 and like 900, 850. Ideally, it should be around 500. That's where the research sits, that's really optimal levels, especially for the development of your red blood cells and your nervous system. So then there's other things like homocysteine. So this is all to do with how your DNA is methylating. And if you have elevated homocysteine, so levels above 10, this is going to be showing that you're not detoxifying properly and that you really need to be focusing on activated vitamins like activated folate, making sure you have adequate B12 levels. This will also regulate your mood and your metabolism and your cholesterol, things, all of those different things. Looking at your inflammatory markers, so CRP, ESR, getting that full comprehensive blood count, like what do your red blood cells look like? Where's your immunity sitting? And then definitely your sex hormones. So a good comprehensive evaluation of those would look like your estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, DHEAS, testosterone, your sex hormone binding globulin, your luteinizing hormones, and your follicle stimulating hormones. So often sometimes doctors will dismiss you and just say, well, yeah, you're kind of going to be low because you're going through perimenopause or menopause and it's irrelevant. But it's not, because it gives you an understanding of where you're really sitting. How low estrogen are you? How low is your progesterone? Because I have some clients that come through and they're super depleted in everything. and definitely checking things like cortisol, your iron, get a really good understanding of what's happening in your body, because without that, you're also playing a lot of guessing games. You're wondering, like, what is it that's going on? Is it vitamin D? Is it B12? Is it my estrogen? If you don't test, you don't know.
And everyone's different, right? There'll be
Yeah.
contributing factors to each bio individual.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's really important. You are going to have increased follicle stimulating hormone going through perimenopause and menopause, because your body's trying to get rid of basically the last eggs. So it's knowing that it's getting to that time, it's going to start pushing it out. And that's going to also show up in your blood work if you're not sure about where you are sitting in perimenopause.
Run us through the importance of methylation, because there won't be a lot of people out there that will understand the importance of that as well.
Yeah, so methylation has a lot to do with your DNA and how it's constructed. So when we're talking about methylation, it is just associated a lot with your detoxification processes, particularly your cysteine, your taurine, your methionine, and your glutathione. Now, that's all to do with how the liver detoxifies everything as well. So if you don't have the capability to, one, construct your DNA in a healthy way, you're going to start to have those genetic changes and that increased risk of disease, especially things that you're predisposed to. And then you're also not going to be able to detoxify your body properly. And things like your taurine have a lot to do with your cardiovascular system. Things like your glutathione have a lot to do with your liver. And just in general, your glutathione is one of the most important antioxidants in your body. So if that's not functioning properly, and you have high homocysteine, it means that that rest of the pathway for detoxification has basically been clogged up. Think of it like a pond, maybe like a more of a river. If it's clogged, it's going to be backed up, and we need to make sure it's all seamlessly going through. Because if you're not detoxifying properly, that's when those increased inflammatory markers, so that would be something like your CRP, your C-reactive protein, you don't want that to be above 5. Anything above 5 is significant inflammation systemically in the body. And that's where you really want to be focusing on your anti-inflammatory compounds.
Awesome. So that's quite a comprehensive, I suppose, testing panel that has to be done. And I know when I went through my menopause, going to different practitioners, they don't all necessarily take the same approach. They don't also necessarily do the comprehensive testing that's required to really, I think, pinpoint the causes of what's happening in your body that is contributing to the symptoms that you're experiencing as a bio individual. So from your perspective, who is the best person to go and see to get that type of testing panel done and to actually really get the guidance required to be able to get through, a significant stage in a woman's life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would be also definitely thinking about seeing a naturopath, one that's particularly focused on hormones or specialized in hormones, because you can always see your GP first, get your blood work sent to you, have a look at that, go through all of that with your GP, but then you can also take that to a naturopath and they can see if there's anything that they think is important, and they can do a referral and work with your GPs as well. So they can give that referral. And also, if you are predisposed to any kind of immune related things, say, for instance, rheumatoid arthritis, and you want to be checking for rheumatoid factors, and if you're starting to get a lot of the aches and pains postmenopausally, you want to be looking at your bone remodeling markers and maybe even going for a bone density scan. So hopefully your practitioner will be thinking about that type of thing as well, and going a lot off your signs and symptoms. The practitioner will do up a referral. Then you can take that to your doctor and get that under Medicare. If you're kind of at a standstill with your GP or specialist, then you can go and get tests done privately as well with your practitioner. And you can also get testing done online now as well.
And so what I'm hearing there as well is that there's an ongoing maintenance approach to work through menopause. It's not just that going in, getting the test done, seeing your preferred practitioner once, then off you go and everything's sweet. It's very much about maintaining and helping the body through that stage.
Absolutely. And checking, if you do have abnormal markers in any way, check them in 3 months, check them in 6 months, see where you're going. And if your doctor is refusing to test, make sure that they put that on the file and say, like, okay, that's fine, but you put that on my file saying that you rejected that.
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to go for too long if there is something.
Yeah.
And the conventional ranges, this is why I definitely recommend a naturopath, especially one that's well versed in this area. They need to be able to pick up on the latest research of the optimal ranges of your blood work, because they're just so broad. It's so easy to miss things. When I see clients that have been told everything that's been fine, and yet they come to me with all of these chronic, debilitating signs and symptoms, it's like, how could you possibly be fine? You have a look through your bloods and you're like, well, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
There's so much that's so obvious, but unless you have someone that's really understanding the biochemistry of the body and the latest research on bloods, then you're going to be sitting in that unknown still.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for those that aren't in perimenopause or menopause yet, and it's inevitable, we all get there at some point, what are the symptoms that women can expect coming into perimenopause and into menopause?
Yeah, definitely. So irritability, mood changes, hot flushes, or just feelings of heat in the body, issues with sleep. A lot of women tend to wake up through the night because of the heat or the hot flushes, or it could just be in general sleep issues. A lot of the time, it's waking between that 12 and 3 a.m. mark and not being able to get back to sleep. Changes in your periods. So sometimes they can become more frequent because of the reduction of progesterone. So days, you might be used to getting your period every 28 days. Sometimes they can become shorter for some women, like 25, 21. And then they can also fluctuate to the other side and then jump from 21 days to like a 40-day period. So if you start to notice those changes and you're around that perimenopausal age or the age of getting changes, 45 onwards, then that's something you would be looking out for. Vaginal dryness, feeling like you have accelerated aging in the skin, any kind of spotting or pain during sex. So there's a few things definitely to look out for when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Weight gain would be another one too.
Yeah, that middle belly weight gain.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that one. I also remember when I went into menopause that I became quite emotional, more so about the major change that my body was going through. It was at the time I thought, what is going on with me? It felt so bizarre. And while it was probably those hormonal imbalances, contributing, I went through this grieving process because the ability of my body to actually conceive children was taken away from me. And it wasn't that I wanted to have more children. It was just that control, that choice had been taken away from me. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful kids, but it was just about all of a sudden that choice was taken away. And I don't think I even really prepared for that time in my life. And I think it is because we don't speak about it. We don't talk about it enough. So it wasn't even in the forefront of my mind at the time, And so all of a sudden it happened and I'm like, it's like just such a shock. You're like, hang on a minute. How is this happening to me already? It's the choice has been taken away from me. I cried, I grieved. It was, I suppose it sounds a bit bizarre. A lot of women would be thinking, yay, I don't have to have a period anymore, which there is that as well. But is that normal? I don't know. I'm sure there's other women out there that had similar experiences as well.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, it's a whole different change. I feel like it's, again, like you said, it's also this isn't like a celebrated time. This is like a scary, eerie, unknown time and era in women's life where it's like, oh no, I'm going to get fat and I'm going to have lots of hot flushes and my life is going to be ruined. And I think that it's again, really trying to educate women and empower women. And, so even leading up to that time, it's a whole different psychological aspect when it comes to thinking about perimenopause and menopause and that post-menopause phase in life. But I think it's actually super healthy to grieve that era. It's like, I guess, when you would have had kids and you've just then gone into motherhood and you can grieve your past self then.
Yeah.
It's a completely different stage of life. And I think it's very healthy to cry and to grieve that time and to allow the emotions to come out as you feel. There's no point in suppressing it or thinking that it's weird or abnormal. I mean, I think it's very normal, and I think it's important actually. And then when you do that, then you can almost like accept that this is part of what now I need to go through this next phase.
Yeah, completely agree. I think it is important to allow yourself to sit in those emotions and feel it. And, it's a part of the processing, a part of letting go and
Yeah.
that transitional period into the next stage of your life, and we often suppress our emotions throughout our entire lives on so many different things. And so if we can get to that point of maturity where we can just sit in it and let it go, then I think that that's a much healthier way to do it.
And just to touch base on that again, I mean, I think for your whole life, even from early ages, it's always been that women need to be young, need to be, super fit, super fertile, and aging has been looked at very differently as well. There's some good books that I want to mention too, which is The Wisdom of Menopause and Age of Miracles, Embracing the New Midlife. And I think even if women were to start reading more about menopause in a positive way and talking about it with friends, then maybe it can be taken a lot more lightly. People can start to joke about it a little bit more and be expressive. And I mean, there should be menopause groups out there. There should be women's menopause retreats. There should be so much more happening that it can almost be exciting. Like with any kind of change, it's super scary. But what if this could be the most fantastic time of your life to just focus on you,
Oh,
to not be looked at
sure.
as just a fertile being, or that your whole purpose in life is to be looked at as something of a childbearing nature, or to just also within your body and your features. What if it's so much more than that? What if this is a time that you can really bypass your physical attributes as well? I mean, we can definitely support that, but your passions, like, really drive those into something you can have fulfilling your life for the next 30 years.
Definitely. And it is that point in life, your children have grown up, you're moving through that next stage, creating it about you, honoring the phase that you're in that life, and very much taking almost a spiritual approach, I think, to
Yeah,
embracing that next phase of your life and putting yourself first.
definitely.
So you've walked through a number of the symptoms there, and there's quite a lot there that women can or cannot experience. Not everyone experiences the same symptoms, but I understand a lot of those symptoms are caused by neural endocrine issues, and that's much more of a fuel problem, right?
Yeah, so there's definitely, are you meaning more as well in your serotonin
Yeah.
type of thing when we're talking about that? Yeah. So there's definitely changes in serotonin. There's definitely changes as well when it comes to the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland. So generally, when we are having menstrual periods, you're constantly having that ovarian to pituitary gland and hypothalamus communication within the brain. So your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland are constantly getting that feedback mechanism to understand what's going on within your cycle. That starts to change with perimenopause and menopause. And actually, your estrogen starts to be produced a lot more from the adrenal glands. So it's super multifaceted. The women's body is so complex and magnificent when you think about what it does to naturally change. And I guess I'll just try and break it down. So
Sure.
first, I just want to talk to you more about, I guess, the biochemistry of the changes from the estrogen side of things, which is when you're starting to get into perimenopause, your estrogen is generally a little bit higher because your progesterone levels start to drop. And that's why you can have the shorter cycles and more of that estrogen dominant characteristic with your cycle. So heavier periods, fibroids, cystic breasts, that type of thing. Your body will start to do that to naturally support your estrogen levels starting to come down. So the other thing that will happen is as that process gradually happens, your adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidneys, will start to increase the production of your estrogen. Basically, It's going to increase your androgen-based hormones, so things like your testosterone, your DHEA, and the DHEAs are actually what will convert into your estrogen moving into menopause instead of your ovaries. So it's a transitional period from your ovaries to the adrenal glands. And so when you are having that transition, the body is always going to prioritize your adrenal cortisol. So your cortisol and your adrenaline will also come from your adrenal glands. That's the primary source. So anytime that you're in that fight or flight mechanism, when you're really stressed, when you're not sleeping well, when you have anxiety, that's all going to come from the adrenal glands, the cortisol, the norepinephrine, and the adrenaline. Within your body's hierarchy system, it is always going to prioritize the cortisol and the adrenaline because it doesn't differentiate where your stress is coming from. It just feels unsafe. Your body doesn't feel safe. So in that case, your estrogen and your sex hormones go on the back burner. And this is another reason why I think you can have the lower serotonin, because one, you might not be having that healthy circadian sleep cycle, and you're not getting that neural recalibration each night as well, which is super important to regulate your serotonin. So there's so much that's involved when it comes to menopause. There's a lot of information now about it being lower serotonin, lower estrogen, having influences within the brain on the cholinergic system, and that being a very core influencer when it comes to the thermoregulation and your hot flushes. Not only that, but put into this whole bucket of menopause, nutrient deficiencies and external stresses and any other underlying conditions that might be happening, or maybe you're not getting enough exercise. Like it's just such a big thing. So we really have to think of menopause as a whole new perspective of health, not just lower estrogen. It's just huge, the changes that happen.
What about things like epigenetics, DNA, all of those contributing factors as well? As you said, like from nutrient, there's so many things, like you said, that contribute to how a woman will experience menopause.
Definitely. So yes, there's definitely the epigenetic side of things. And if you're in the genetics, so if you've had your mother and your grandmother all have issues, or your aunties all have issues with menopause being really tough, you are going to be more predisposed to that. But if you really investigate comprehensively your body, your biochemistry, and you take that initiative to really go, okay, this is time for me to really look after myself and find out exactly what I need to do to support and nourish this transition, you are not going to be going through it the way that your parents and grandparents did. Also, because there wasn't enough information then. There's still not enough information, but within the last 20 years, 10 years, we've definitely found there's a lot more research, there's a lot more understanding, and there's starting to be more of the discussions around it. So even if your parents or your mother didn't go through it properly or suffered a lot, it doesn't mean that you need to either.
For sure. I think cortisol as well is such an important factor to consider because of the way the body processes cortisol and, how it can then impact, if it's not processed correctly, particularly through menopause, how they can impact, the sex hormones, libido. You've got this sort of snowball effect that happens. And your body's just, mentally you're thinking, well, what is going on? Why is this happening to me?
Oh my gosh, yes. And this is where I think the self-introspection is the most important part coming into this transitional time. So you really have to sit, think, give your subconscious mind the time to come forward, really ask yourself questions like, am I happy? What is my environment like? Are my boundaries healthy? Who are the people that I am around? Do they make me happy? Do they irritate me a lot? Why do they irritate me a lot? Does it feel rational, or does it feel like I've just been dealing with this crap for like 10 years and I'm over it and I need to make some big changes? What is happening with my life and my body? And are there strategies that I really need to think about putting in to make my environment as healthy as possible. And that, again, is going in, and maybe you need to cut people off. Maybe you need to focus on really supporting new friendships. And that's why there's a lot of divorces that happen around this time as well.
Yeah, definitely, because we're so unbalanced in terms of our hormones. And I think that that mental state that you're describing there is really critical to helping us get through this stage in our lives. Because, if we do things like meditation and so on, assessing how we can be kinder to ourselves can really contribute to perhaps managing those cortisol levels a little bit better, so that it's not contributing to those night sweats and hot flushes. I mean, I remember working so hard during when I went through menopause and sitting in meetings, high stress meetings, and having these bloody sweats come through and this
Yeah.
itching creeping up the back of my neck and my scalp, and getting sort of facial sweats happening, and at the time feeling so embarrassed by it, and it not being able to really manage that other than get a piece of paper and fanning myself to try to cool my body down, but because I'm stressing about it, it's contributing to it more because my cortisol levels are increasing because of my stress. So it's crazy. If you can get into the mind and, go hussar a little bit.
Totally. And also, I mean, this is our whole female population, and no one even accounts for menopause in the workplace. It's like, okay, there should just be more thought as a workplace as well in those types of things. Like, be able to step outside, put a little, have a little fan. Like, I don't know. I just think that we're failing.
I've got a great story to tell that a friend told me who went through menopause, and she had to go to a meeting and she got so flustered because she was running late. Stress levels went through the roof. The sweats kicked in. And when she arrived, she was just dripping. And he took one look at her. It was a man that she was meeting. He took one look at her. He said, "How about we go and sit in the freezer room?" And she's like, "Oh my God, I love it." Thank you so much. So they actually did have their meeting in the freezer room.
I love it.
Like, that is an emotionally aware, intelligent man who just took one look at her and just got it, just knew what she was going through. And like, "I got you, girl."
Nice. I love it. Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what we need. Maybe we just need a little freezer room for all the hot flushes. Go there.
And maybe we need to be educating men more about what we're going through as well, because so they can then help and understand, why are we irritable? Why are we waking up with our night sweats at night and not able to sleep, which is making us even more irritable,
Yeah, absolutely. Partners need to be, it's a foundation, it's a team. So happy wife, happy life.
100%, 100%. So what are the options for managing menopause and the symptoms? Is it diet, HRT, supplements? What's your recommended approach?
Okay, so I feel like that first I just want to talk about the hormone replacement therapy, so the HRT. I want all of the women that are listening to this or that will see this to know that this is not your only option.
Agreed.
And that if you are on it, that's okay. You can still support your body to come off. It's a slow process. That's fine. I totally understand that it can feel completely debilitating and these signs and symptoms can totally take over your life. And therefore, you might really feel like HRT is your only option. That's fine if you need something really quick. But with HRT, you'll still have to come off them and you'll still have to go through the menopause again. So HRT is actually going to suppress your own ability to make your hormones. Your body is super smart. It's intelligent. If it's getting an external source of hormones, then your pituitary gland and that hypothalamus feedback is getting plenty of estrogen. So it's like, okay, I don't need to communicate that feedback to the adrenal glands and the ovaries that we actually need any more estrogen. And this is also the same with any kind of contraceptive or hormone therapy. So then you come off HRT and you have to go through it all again, except now this time you've gone back like 10 steps because now you have to completely recalibrate that hormonal communication. So there are a lot of different ways that you can support it with herbs. Herbs are amazing. Mother's nature for us, and there's so many nice ones. Definitely to support the phytoestrogen side of things and the hormonal communication and that glandular function, as well as the adrenal herbs. Absolutely nutrients, absolutely lifestyle. Again, getting all of those checks and making sure you're not nutrient deficient. So, yeah.
So what sort of herbs are you referring to there? I mean, obviously they need to go and see their practitioner and, get themselves checked and because everyone's bio-individual and what will work for one person won't work for the next. But at a higher level, what would we be looking at?
Yep. So I love Vitex. It's a beautiful, nourishing herb for lower progesterone, sage, red clover, I would say red raspberry leaf, definitely, black cohosh, passion flower. Those ones are really good for helping maca root. So even having like a teaspoon of maca root in a smoothie each day. Shatavari is another really nice one. Things like your wild yams. So all of those are really beautiful in helping to support that menopausal transition, hormonal wise. And then you have the adrenal side of things because we definitely need to be managing that stress response and the adaptability to the stresses. So that's like your Panax and your Siberian ginsengs, your withanias, so Withania somnifera, rhodiola rosea, and definitely magnesium. So magnesium bisglycinate is a really nice form, activated B vitamins. So that's a really lovely blend if you were to look as first and foremost as a priority, the adrenal herbs and then the hormonal balancing herbs as well.
Awesome. In terms of just back on HRT, there are a number of women out there that I know that are on HRT quite resistant to coming off it. I think it's because they don't understand that there is an alternate solution, and that, as you said, that it's inevitable that they're going to have to come off it at some point in time, and you're just delaying the inevitable. And when I went through menopause, I didn't go on HRT, and I used herbs to support my transition. And, I came out of it relatively quickly, so within, 12 months, I felt that I was symptom free and back to normal again.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was. It was great. So I think that that's an example of how you can get through menopause without having to resort to HRT. And I mean, what are some of the other side effects of being on HRT as well?
Yeah, so a lot of women can put on weight.
Yeah.
They can get the increase in facial hair. I think they get quite a lot of the fluid retention because the higher estrogen levels. Actually, there has been some cases that I've seen where HRT women have been on HRT and their estrogen levels haven't been monitored. So they've been left on a particular HRT dose for, a year and not checked it. And they actually had higher estrogen levels and developed polyps and fibroids. So it's important to make sure you're checking these things. Yes, you are reducing estrogen ovarian within your ovarian communication, but like it's the natural process. We just have to really support that coming over. So yeah, I think there can be a lot of mood swings as well and a bit more pressure on the liver because your body is continuously trying to metabolize the excessive estrogens. So you basically you can start to develop, especially if you haven't had your period for a while, you might even start spotting or bleeding again.
Yeah.
And that's when you have to go back to see your GP. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's talk diet because I think that that's such a great foundational way to support our bodies on any given day, let alone going through a major change like menopause. I mean, I know that there's research out there that indicates that being on a Mediterranean diet or a keto diet could potentially support women during menopause and benefit them. What are your thoughts around the preferred dietary approach?
Okay, so I see a lot of menopausal women, and these are my top tips that I give them. Firstly, you want to have like 3 really good servings of phytoestrogens per day. So these are foods that help to balance out your estrogen levels. Phyto meaning plant, estrogens meaning they bind to the estrogen receptors and provide an estrogenic influence. The nice thing is that they are hormone modulators. So if your estrogen is high or low, it will become more balanced. So these are foods like your chickpeas. So think chickpeas, hummus, lentils, a good, a tablespoon of flax seeds, ground flax seeds. So flax seeds are a really beautiful one, but they need to be ground. And the oil is not going to give you the same phytoestrogen effect either. Alfalfa sprouts, your organic soy. So Organic soy is okay in this time. You just have to make sure that it comes from a really good quality source, always organic. Look for things like your tempeh, your edamame beans, the silk kind of tofu that's been less processed.
Mm-hmm.
So in Asia, they're using a lot more of those. Your herbal tea, so sage tea, like 3 times a day would be another really beautiful thing to do. So you might want to have that with some lemon, maybe some cucumber and mint, have like an iced tea each day. But those phytoestrogens, I would definitely recommend doing your research on and get 3 servings a day of them, good servings. And that is naturally going to really support you. So say, for instance, you started your day with a glass of, warm lemon water. Then maybe you want to have like a good green cleansing juice to continue to cool the body and support your digestive system. So that would be like cucumber, celery, ginger, turmeric. Get those alfalfa sprouts in there for your phytoestrogen hit, and some lemon as well. You want to have like a good glass or 2 of that each day to just cool the body, reduce any kind of inflammation, make sure you're moving your bowels properly, and continue that alkalizing effect. Then maybe for lunch, you'd have like a really nice phytoestrogen rich salad. So that would be, like a good serving of your chickpeas or your hummus, or maybe you want to do a combination of lentils and your alfalfa sprouts. And then you might want to have like your onion and, make it really nice, and a good serving of your olive oil. So I'm not just talking like 1 tablespoon, like, do a good drizzle with some lemon or like a vinaigrette, because you're going to need a lot more of the omega-3s coming into perimenopause to help support any of the itching skin, the dry skin, the vaginal dryness. So you want to have omega-3s with each meal. I like the Mediterranean style diet. I think it's good because it allows a lot of those omega-3s through your fish and your seafood. So yeah, your flaxseed oil, your avocado oils, a lot of those virgin cold pressed oils are fantastic. And definitely your collagen rich foods. So with menopause, particularly post menopause, there's research to show it's about a 2.1% decrease per annum for collagen, particularly type 1 and 3 collagen. So that's going to leave you quite predisposed to your uterine prolapses, your vaginal structural integrity having issues, so the painful sex and the dryness and the lack of that hyaluronic acid and the hydration within the vaginal tissue. And, same with your skin and your intestines. So I would always recommend like a good collagen peptide powder.
Mm-hmm. Is there a particular brand that you prefer?
I love the Happy Collagen. So I also work at Happy Healthy You, and they have beautiful blend of herbs that it's called Happy Hormones, and they also have Happy Collagen. So I really like that. And I think that, it's a really lovely blend together. So I would definitely recommend those. And, when you're during winter, make the bone broths, get old school, make up a bone broth every week, have that as your stock, have that as your base for your soups, make your gelatin desserts, get the gelatin, make it with fruit. And that's going to be another excellent way to increase that collagen and protein support. Lots of proteins, make sure protein with each meal, because you don't want to be not having enough protein and then not being able to make enough collagen. So the other thing is really important that comes to this time is be very careful on antacids and when you're taking supplements. So don't take calcium supplements around food, because that will inhibit, basically it's going to alkalize the stomach. It's going to inhibit your digestive capacity and increase the hydrochloric acid pH and make it more alkaline. So we want our stomach pH to be acidic to be able to break down the food. So if you are on antacids, really work with someone to try and come off them. Long-term antacids are horrendous for women coming into this age. It will inhibit your absorption of zinc, calcium, magnesium, your proteins, your iron, your B12, and then it's going to disrupt the rest of the digestive enzyme secretion from things like your pancreas and your liver and your gallbladder. So that's another top tip as well. And then, of course, you want to be making sure that your food is as nutrient dense as possible and increasing other calcium rich foods.
Awesome. So looking at those phytoestrogens and ramping those up per day, so 3 times per day, what else would you recommend on top of that?
So definitely like the cleansing juices,
Yeah.
definitely aim to have that salad each day, your collagen rich foods, your
Yep.
calcium rich foods, and things to avoid. Definitely try and limit your alcohol
Yeah.
and your wines. It's hard, and all in moderation, but you'll probably find that when you are having more regular alcohol, you're going to become a lot more heated. So that's a big one. Sugars, the processed foods, really try not to overdo it on your coffee and your caffeine, because they're all going to be things that are going to well, especially the caffeine side of things. If you're like a 2+ coffees a day and you're like having 3 or 4 coffees to get through the day because you're super wrecked, that's just going to be stimulating the cortisol and the adrenals. So it's going to inhibit them from prioritizing your sex hormones.
Yeah. I think alcohol's a huge one that's underestimated in terms of the impact. Not even just generally speaking on health, across the board for men and women. And the latest research, I just did a deep dive this past week into some research that's come out of the UK about how moderate alcohol consumption contributes negatively to grey and white matter in the brain. Even just 1 to 7 drinks a week.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you do it, one a day or whether you do it, the 7 drinks all on a Friday and Saturday night is still going to have the same impact on your cognitive function. And just the data that's out there in terms of the research that's been done around the impact on hormones for women in particular and around the menopausal stage as well, I think it's quite interesting and worth consideration.
Absolutely. It's definitely the hardest one, I think, for a lot of menopausal women. Yeah. And
It
then
is.
even with the lifestyle side of things, I think it's really important to really focus on setting a healthy sleep routine up so you can really wind down properly. And there's also been research on if you did yoga 1 hour 5 times a week for 8 weeks, it had a massive improvement for signs and symptoms as well. Because I think, again, it's working on that deep breathing and restorative. So even if it's not intensive and you don't feel like intensive stuff, just go on there and even just do some breathing and stretches,
For sure.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the sleep one, it was one that I was challenged with because I think I was just a poor sleeper, full stop, from having 3 children. When you've got young kids, you tend to be on all the time. You train yourself to be on, so you're waking up when they wake up, and then that kind of becomes embedded, into your
Yeah.
body. I ended up becoming a light sleeper for many, many years. So getting into that routine of starting to wind the body down and starting to really help nourishing and propping up your circadian rhythms. So at night time, once we've eaten, I try to stop eating it by 8 o'clock. Then once we've cleaned up, turn the lights off, start to limit any light, any device use, go to bed, read, have a hot shower, some nice lavender oil, start to signal to the body, wind
Yes.
down time, crawl into bed
Love
with a
it.
nice book, try to avoid all those devices, late at night. And then, you're waking up in the morning and then straight away go and spend some time outside for 10 minutes, so you're getting that broad spectrum light. And you're actually then setting your circadian rhythms up for the day. Your cortisol levels are starting to increase. I think it's such an important process to try to sort of bed down. And, again, we're all different in terms of what works for us, but that certainly has worked for me. And I can absolutely testify to the fact that having that process works because I'm having the best sleep of my life these days. And thank God, because there's nothing worse than me with poor sleep, because I turn an absolute cranky bitch when I don't have
Yeah.
much
Yeah,
sleep.
exactly. Yes, girl. I love that wind down routine. That's perfect. That whole setting up the circadian rhythm. I love it. Love, love, love. Hmm.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So, would you mind running us through a case study example of a client that you've had that you've helped deal with menopause, and obviously without revealing any personal details about them, but how do you address menopause issues when a client first comes in to see you? What's your process?
Yeah. So I think because I see so many menopausal women, it was hard to kind of think about one, but I feel like it would be everything that I've discussed all in one. So if we were to just lay it down and really solidify what I would do, it would be have a really good look over their blood work and make sure that if there's anything outside the optimal levels, that they would be nourished and supported. If they're presenting with super chronic fatigue and lots of aches and pains and digestive issues, would I consider other testing? So would it be like a good gut comprehensive microbiome test? Would they need further thyroid testing? Because again, if you're not supporting your body through that menopausal transition and your adrenals are overworked and you might be nutrient depleted and not even know, the next thing that's going to go is your thyroid, because your thyroid is consistently trying to navigate what your environment is like. Do I feel safe? Do I not feel safe? And if you are consistently in that cortisol driven state, then your body is naturally going as a defense mechanism to a hypothyroid state. And that's really where you can put on a lot of that weight. You can feel totally depleted. Your metabolism really slows down, and you really find it very difficult to get out of bed. Everything is just hard. And so in that case, then I'd be looking at things like thyroid and making sure that there's no Hashimoto's thyroiditis or anything that's prolonged like that. But a lot of the time, that's another very common link with menopause is hypothyroidism. So again, having a really good look at that, going through with them and really discussing their bodies systemically. So sleep, digestion, everything. Let's just go into detail about everything. And then it would be constructing a protocol with the supplements that are very navigated towards what I found, the diet. A lot of what I've mentioned is definitely a go-to, because if you get that right to begin with, I find that like 90% of women, if not more, are already going to feel a lot better. And then working on the lifestyle to what, as a woman, where you are in that point in time that you feel confident in doing, whether it's like just getting on the mat for 10 minutes to do stretches. If that's all you're capable of doing, then that's all you do until we start getting everything else functioning better.
Awesome. Yeah, all really great tips. So a lot of us really freak out when we're going into perimenopause and menopause, as we've sort of highlighted before. And it's, again, my uterus is drying up, I'm officially old. And we know that women age more rapidly post-menopause unless they take measures to try to address or combat that. So, the body has the reduced estrogen, as we've outlined. It stops making collagen, our cellular aging speeds up, and our epigenetic clock is impacted. What suggestions do you have to help women maintain their youth while going through or after menopause and promote that healthy aging? Because it's not just about the hormonal balances and, managing the symptoms. Obviously women want to be there, put their, the best them forward.
Yeah.
And we want to age gracefully, but equally we want to age well, and still be able to do the things we love, right?
Definitely. I think it's just really about getting back to basics, really getting back to the whole food and taking initiative with, okay, I really need to make sure that each meal is as nutrient dense as possible. So a lot of those super high anti-inflammatory foods, your turmerics, your gingers, those bone broths, your spirulina, a lot of the berries, the kale, the green tea, your grapefruits, keep it super fresh, get a lot of those vegetable juices in. Don't be adding fruit to your vegetable juices because it's just going to increase your sugar. Save them for the smoothies, but keep it really green with your veggie juices. Have your probiotic rich foods to help support that gut health side of things. Think about ice bath therapy. So hydrotherapy is another really, really nice one. You might want to start doing the ice bath therapy. That's going to keep you super vital and young, or even using like the facial rollers and the gua shas for your face, just to get that circulation flowing. Sometimes it can be really nice to do a facial steam and then use your gua sha or your facial roller. Depending on where in your menopause journey you are, maybe a sauna therapy or the Epsom salt bath. So I think hydrotherapy is huge when it comes to supporting menopause and healthy aging.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So especially for women when they're feeling very hot, that's why I do recommend the ice bath therapies, swimming, moving your body every single day, making sure that you are getting that movement. And I think the biggest part is get a good group of girlfriends.
Yeah. Oh, you can't
Like,
underestimate
yeah,
the sense of community and socializing and how that keeps you young. It absolutely is a contributing factor to longevity.
yeah, because you can be doing all the right things with your health, but if you don't have that social aspect, you're just going to be so much more predisposed to lower moods and also not feeling as excited, to go out and do things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, get a good group of girlfriends, instead of going out and having cocktails all the time for every meetup, go and do something nice. Go and do like a float and then like a walk, or like go for a swim in the ocean. Do the
Yeah.
nice things, have spa days, whatever you want. Just make it nice and nourishing to yourself and make that the standard.
For sure. Yeah. And that's exactly what my girlfriends and I do. And, I can absolutely contest to ice baths being wonderful, for managing inflammation, contributing to longevity. I've been doing ice baths for a couple of years now and I absolutely love them.
Nice.
I hate cold water, so I
Yeah,
can put that
yeah.
out there. And it really is a mental thing. I started off with the hot, cold showers, the Wim Hof method, using the box breathing, all of that, which I found really helps, particularly when you hit the ice baths.
Yeah.
I've been able to get up to being in an ice bath over 20 minutes now, which is
Woo! Damn, I love that.
I'm trying to crack that record, but that personal record. But yeah, definitely moving the body for me, it's absolutely key. Exercising every day, whether it's just going for a walk. It doesn't even have to necessarily be resistance workouts every day. But I find that has been really key to keeping me mobile, keeping me young, keeping me feeling healthy. As you said, all of those beautiful nutrient dense foods for sure. I think I need to ramp up my collagen more.
Yeah, every day, every
Yeah.
day.
Definitely. All right, let's get down and dirty and talk about the sex. So, how
Yes.
does menopause impact our sex life? I mean, we've touched a little bit about things like, dry vagina, discomfort during sex. Why do these things happen and why are we experiencing? Can you do a bit of a deeper dive on that for us more?
Yeah. So definitely if we go back to the collagen, reduction in type 1 and 3 collagen, definitely going to be influencing the structural integrity, but it also is going to change the hyaluronic acid within the vaginal tissues as well. So the lower estrogen also influences the collagen and the hyaluronic acid, and that hyaluronic acid is what really keeps that moisture in. So you know how you get the hyaluronic acid for your face?
Yep.
So it's the same thing. It's going to happen within the vaginal tissue. So we need to really be supporting that. So the more collagen that you have there, the better. But, like pain, bleeding, ulceration, all of that kind of stuff during sex, it's huge. It's like 77% of women actually have painful sex.
Yeah.
So I think it's also very much, yes, there's the physical aspect of it when we're talking about all of the genetic expressions and the proteins and the biochemistry. But then I also think, do you still like your husband or the person that you're with? Like, do they turn you on? Or is it kind of a mundane thing that it's turned into? Could this be a time to really spice up the sex life? Should you get like, the vibrating wands?
Yep.
I recommend those to women as well because, climax every single time you have sex. Look forward to sex.
Sure.
Use a really good, nice, natural lubricant. I think olive and bees is a really nice lube to use as well.
Yep.
There's some really nice vaginal balms that you can use. And you can also put in, like, get a vitamin E capsule and prick it and then put it in your vagina and then just have a liner in there on a daily basis to help keep it really soft and smooth as well. But yeah, I think it's also up to, if you're not having so much of the pain and you're still mainly just at a reduction in libido, then I think it really comes down to you and your partner at this time in life. Because yes, hormones play a big role in it, but I also think it's like women are now at a different level of being turned on.
Yeah.
You're not just going to get turned on straight away by what used to turn you on, because that's no longer the way it's going to happen biochemically. What's going to turn you on is being supported and having a great, healthy relationship and communication and maybe sex games that you can have long foreplay, like really bring out the foreplay. There's also something called O-nut, and it's like a donut basically that you can have. So it's the penis doesn't fully go into the vagina.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might not have as much pain, but it still gives the guy pleasure as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that option as well. But I think it's just making sure that it's so multifaceted now. And it has to be, the guy has to also realize that no, he can't just like poke you on the shoulder and be like, hey, you want to have sex?
Yeah, let's get it on.
And that be like, yeah, baby, I'm going to go for it. That's like the best thing that I wanted. No, take me out to dinner. You know, let's get the magic happening.
Yeah, slow burn, right?
Yeah, slow burn. Ask each other questions like, what turns you on now? You know, like, what turns you on now? What can I do to really initiate sex? Because a lot of the time during this phase as well with the libido, women can totally get the ick factor.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I actually don't even want your body on me. But it's also, so, you know, it has to be this team effort.
For sure. I think it's just so important to have that slow burn. It's not just about, you know, what happens behind closed doors, you know, in the bedroom at night. You know, you want to be receiving and giving affection during the day, you know, having those kisses and those touches that start to switch things on, you know, slowly, you know, and leading up to it. And that is that building that anticipation, and that sort of starts to prime you for sex. So I think that that's really important to do that. But, you know, I wonder also whether it's that when women do start to experience things like pain during sex and dry vagina, whether that then kind of puts them off a little bit and think, oh, I don't want to have sex because it's actually hurts and it doesn't feel as great as what it used to be. So I think some of those tips that you've just outlined in terms of what you can do to lubricate a little bit more, using the vitamin E oil and so on, you know, might help to address that and maybe take the fear factor of having sex out.
Yeah, definitely. Women need to make sure they're looking into like nice vaginal balms. So there is a couple out there. I'm forgetting the names off the top of my head, but
I'll get you to send them through to me later and I can put them in the notes for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think get the communication going.
Awesome. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I think it's just been so much fun and such a great topic. I mean, I think we could talk for hours about it and do a deeper dive into so many, you know, components of what we've discussed today. And I'm sure we can do that again another time. So we'll get you back on to flesh things out even a little bit more. But I think this has been a really great conversation to cover menopause and perimenopause and the hormonal impacts and what we go through at a sort of a broader level. And I really hope that it helps, you know, our lady listeners out there when they listen to this podcast, and hopefully they'll share it with others, because the more that we get this information out to everyone and start talking about it and sharing, oh, well, what lube worked for you, and, you know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we're empowering each other to be able to continue to feel hot and sexy and attractive and vibrant. So definitely let's get this information out there. And thank you so much for your time today, for coming on today. And it's been awesome, Renee. Thank you. So where can people find you if they want to come and see you for anything? What are your socials?
Yep. So thank you so much also for having me. This has been an amazing podcast. Thank you. And so you can find me at Happy Healthy You. Unfortunately, I'm currently not taking any new clients, but we do have other practitioners that are very well versed in menopause. There's lots of information as well that women can have a look at. And you can find me at women's_health_specialist on Instagram and on TikTok.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks so much, Renee.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to learn more about biohacking, go ahead and sign up on my website at www.biohack-her.com to get a free copy of my 5 top biohacks to get you kick-started. While you're there, you can also check out my blog page for more tips on biohacking. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. Let us know if there's anyone you'd like us to talk to in particular, and we'll endeavour to get them on the podcast. Until next time, remember to live well longer.